Tec Sounds presents EduTrends.
Welcome to the EduTrends podcast and webcast, both brought to you by the Institute for the Future of Education. I am José Pepe Escamilla, and today I have a guest from Lightcast, Bledi Taska. He's Executive Vice President and Chief Economist at Lightcast. It's a pleasure to have you here, Bledi.
It's a pleasure to be here. It's a great invitation.
Yes, it has been great to have you here in Monterrey for a couple of days. So I wanted to ask you about the future of remote work, because we have seen some pendulum in remote work that was very pervasive during the pandemic. And then we say that remote work is here to stay, but we have seen some companies or people struggling from one side to the other. And I also want to ask you your answer. Where does your answer come from in your work in Lightcast? How do you come with that answer?
Well, I mean, I'm an economist, so I think it helps also to think. One of my training helps to think a little bit in more long term. So it's easy to get disturbed by short term thinking and sort of like saying what happened now, what has happened. I mean, if you look at the data that we have, and the data that we have in the paper with Nick Bloom and co-author, for sure there's been a very large increase in remote work. And although we've seen a stabilization even in the past couple of months, or maybe a small decrease, we're nowhere near the levels that we were before the pandemic. So even just looking at the data we have, or even other research, you don't see that the trend is reversing back to where it is. So that's a signal, again, but that's a short-term signal. I mean, if you think about more sort of like what are the forces at play here, those forces are just too strong to ignore. And those are too strong to ignore for a long time. The force of competition that is at play is going to move more and more companies into actually going into remote work. And the reason for that is that although there's a lot of companies that maybe they've invested a lot in real estate space and other things, and maybe they have other reasons why they want people back because they believe that actual productivity is being affected by remote work. If you think about, there's more and more newer companies coming and being generated than older. And so over time, a lot of these companies, they will want to, first of all, be more cost efficient and actually get the best talent. And the best way to do that, be more cost efficient and find the best talent where it is by finding people where they are, not trying to bring them into where you are. Go after talent. And that force of finding the best talent, wherever the best talent is too strong to ignore. And I think we're going to see more and more companies. I think about a new startup, right? In 15 years from now, do you think that they're just going to have like regular offices and just going to have people? I don't believe that. So I think the trend is going to be for remote work, especially for the newer companies, more and more we're going to see that they are going to more fully remote. And on the other side, right, this kind of creates this competition effect, because for people now, remote work for employees becomes a perk, same as pension or other benefits. And depending on the sort of group that you are, that might need more flexibility, it could be very important perk. And now if an employer says, well, I need you to come work at the office, but the other one says, no, you can work from home. Guess what's going to happen in terms of where people are going to try to go. So I think the competition effect and the cost effect are going to lead to see more and more remote work, and also the technologies will improve. I mean, again, we entered in this world in a kind of by necessity, and we entered with almost the technologies that we had. Right? There's this big shock of COVID. We had to survive, and we had some technologies like Zoom and other things. But think about the technologies that we'll develop that are going to, be there to help and increase productivity and how we're collaborating. Think in 5 years, 10 years from now, we're going to see better and better, like a little bit also what you're developing in terms of like the augmented, reality and virtual reality. So like we will be in the same space potentially. So AR and VR might play. So technology also is going to improve. So I think all of this trend, competition, the way that employees see benefit, and also improving technology, for me, means that we're going to see more and more remote work.
So it's the drivers of change are competition for talent, cost, and that technology will allow for even more seamless work. I agree with you. I am in favor of hybrid or more flexible work, but I I've seen some things that I believe they deserve also an answer, and I don't know if you're going to go into that also. So you said that the reasons that companies say it is because, well, they have invested in real estate and they want to use it to just justify their investment, no? And I agree that's a silly reason to do that. You can find that, use that for playground or whatever for children if you want. And the other one is productivity, which I think it could be a concern that is real, no? The other one for me is culture. So what if all your hires are remote and how do you recreate culture of an organization? No, so it's you have a certain way of doing things, the vibe of the place, no, and then there's all other things that are more serendipitous, no? So that you contact people in different places. You talk with I cross someone on a hallway, and we talk about something. Then side idea that come, and most of the tools, IT tools that we have for communication, doesn't allow for those things. Because if you're in a meeting, or you're with one person or a group of persons. It's not that you can move and talk to someone while you're in a meeting, no? Or whisper someone in the ear. What will you say about that?
I would say that actually I fully agree with you. I don't have a great answer, though. I think those are the important questions that we have not answered. So I think a little bit what we have been able to answer somehow is what are we seeing in terms of trends, and where do we believe the trends are going to go? And my answer is that I feel like the trends are going to go increase. I do believe that there is some some early evidence that we're probably going to converge more to like a hybrid than actually a full remote, although there will be some companies that will be fully remote. I think the bigger area of research for the next 3 to 5 years will be who does remote work affect and how? There's still the biggest questions about, is it good for employers or it is not good for employers? Is it good for employees or is it not good for employees, right? And the answer would be it's good for one but not good for the other, right? We still need to figure that out. And, does it affect productivity? Does it affect the productivity of who? Because it could be that it could be a different aspect. If you already have, for example, a team, hiring more remote workers might not be as problem for the productivity because you already have a structure and you already have built a culture. And so like you're bringing them to things that you have built. But maybe like if you're building a team from scratch, that might be significantly more bad for productivity and for culture. So does it affect promotion, for example? Like there's already some literature that shows that for younger people, if they're remote, it might inhibit their promotions. Well, maybe it does. Maybe it doesn't affect the promotion of more senior people, right? Does it improve diversity, right? Again, some initial indication that if you are hiring remotely, we can hire more diverse pool of employees. So these are all great questions that I don't think that we have the answer today, but I think it is going to be an area of very active research for the next 3 to 5 years. Especially the issue of productivity is something that we also don't have great data. And there are some initial, more and more we're going to collect and we're going to start having data about what employees do within the firm, maybe like through codes that they write or other things. So I think we're going to have more light. But today we don't have great data about productivity and how really it is affected. I think we have sort of hearsay and indication that people might spend more time by opening the fridge and taking a nap at home, and maybe that affects productivity. Then another person, but they don't spend time by driving, and they also don't spend time by talking to their. And again, a lot of it is more wave handy. I think I'm going to have to wait to see like real studies, and even the studies that have happened, they're mostly kind of studying very specific occupations that it's not very easy to generalize. Like maybe because customer service, but it's not as easy to generalize from those specific occupations to a more general population. So I think we have some indication. I think we have some questions. I don't think we have great answers about how remote work actually is affecting employees and employers, but we do know that the trend is positive and it is continue positive. And I think those are two distinct things.
Yeah. No, in consumer service, it's a very surveyed area because you have a CRM and you can check by the computer, so not everyone is doing that kind of job. I just read a news that a woman that was fired because the number of clicks that she was doing in the computer. something like that. And she was supposed to write, I don't know how many contracts during the day. And she was writing those contracts, and she said that she was using another thing to do that. And there was a whole, demand around that, because I believe we don't know exactly how to deal with those kind of things. Do we have data generated during the pandemic of the benefits for employers and employees, and also the negative parts of them that you could share during the pandemic that was more massive? Maybe there's more data.
I don't think we have any specific. Again, I think also the pandemic was kind of an experiment that it happened under very specific conditions. I don't think it's easy to extrapolate. Let me tell you one reason. For example, during the first weeks of the pandemic, everybody was like, on one side, hey, we have to do this thing we've never done before, and so like working from home. But a lot of people were like, am I going to keep my job? Or and so that actually forced us in a mode that I don't know if it's sustainable or it's replicable, hyper efficiency, right, during that period. So I think it's not super easy to extrapolate from, especially sort of like the early stages of the pandemic, although there was a natural experiment that happened there, because I think everybody got in that very high shift, like I need to keep my job and need to make sure that, I don't have the lack of a lot, because unemployment literally, sky high, like should in the first month everywhere. I think, to 20, 30% in many, many countries.
Incredible. And you talk also about the technology that is improving, and I want to go into that part of the future of work, which is also how technology will change the future of work.
Well, I mean, are we still talking about remote or in general? Are we still talking about the remote work or about in general how technology is changing?
I think we can talk in general, yes.
Well, I mean, I think technology has always been sort of like the one main driver of the change in work. Like, I mean, work has changed significantly. Like if you look at sort of like, from Industrial Revolution to computers, all of these things have changed work in a way, right? I think there's always been this fear. And it's actually very interesting because you can find the snippets, like, there's this fear of AI, right? It's not new, and you can go like 100 years if there's that you can find snippets in newspapers about how computer or even some type of automation is going to take our jobs, even from the cars and the horses. And it's very interesting if you read of those. But the fact is that technology is always changing jobs. Number one, number two, despite the fears about the sort of like a lot of numbers say about 40% of jobs are going to disappear, we've almost never, at least until recently, have experienced mass extinction of jobs. I think everybody says there's only one job that has disappeared, which is the elevator operator. But nobody can actually name any other job that in the past 100 years.
So the telephone,
Well, the person that presses the button on the elevator, right, that's like takes you up and down. Besides that person, very few, maybe phone operators too, right? But there's like very few jobs that have disappeared, and overall employment has increased, right? There's this effect. I don't think that technology is going to take away jobs. I think it's going to change jobs, and that's the bigger part that we need to understand. And that's part of like what policy and institutes like Monterrey need to take part, is like understanding and predicting like how jobs are changing and how can we prepare students and how we can prepare people for this. Because if you look at the change within the job, like those can be dramatic. Like, a study we did a couple of years ago said that even within a job, almost for 5 years, like 30 to 40% of the skills are changing within 5 years, right? And that's a big change, right? But there's a lot of these studies that show that, especially in the sort of the high-paying jobs, and the tech job, that's actually where a lot of the disruption is happening. So technology is and will change the content of the job. It will make a lot of aspects of the job obsolete, and the people that don't have those skills could potentially be either unemployed or move to jobs that are paying low, and that we have research showing that. So for that reason, we need to understand exactly what that change is meaning, where it's happening, and being able to to keep up with the level of skills that people are needing.
No, I know of. I want to go into skills now, but before going there, just to agree to disagree on the number of jobs that are lost because of automation. I just remember a couple of months ago, I was with the director of assembly plant for car manufacturing in Mexico is very big. And they say that maybe 8 years ago, they have 30,000 employees in the plant, and now they have around 5,000 or 4,000. And the skills they said that they need is now more engineers than low-trained employees, no? Because of the use of robotics. And I say, well, the use of robotics was because it was cheaper than labor. And he said, not necessarily. It's also the quality and the precision of the safety and the flexibility. Also, sometimes in some kinds of the plants, it's true that maybe the community didn't feel that because there's a lot of turnover on the workers, and maybe they didn't had to fire people. It's just that they stopped hiring new people at the moment they were changing. It was done during a certain period, but I agree with you that we need different skills and different people when there's automation. No?
So, I mean, let me make a distinction. And again, I think this can be very nuanced very fast. I think there's a difference between sort of overall effect and distributional effects. Let me explain what I mean for that. For example, like a lot of times, a lot of people said, trade is, on Economist been saying trade is good because everybody benefits. And trade could be good for the whole economy in general, but there's a very specific segment of the population that are suffering. And I think to some level, the effects of automation can be similar. And a lot of times we're thinking about, automation overall might be having some jobs being lost, but overall it improves the economic activity, so it's creating some other jobs. So those people. So there's this overall effect, which the overall effect is that overall we have more jobs, right, than we had before. But for those people that are losing their job, from the moment they lost their jobs, actually go and get another job, that is a traumatic effect. So I think we need to take both of those into account. I think the comment was more like, hey, are we overall losing jobs as an economy? And the answer is probably not. I think overall the automation is helping us get more jobs, but those jobs would be different potentially than some of the jobs that were before. And so that's part. The other one is that I think, yes, some of the predictions have come true, but there are others that potentially not. Like, for example, although we're getting close to that, truck drivers. For the past 10 years, we've had this discussion about how we're going to have these autonomous vehicles and how all of the truck drivers are going to be out of business. And at least until for the past 3-4 years, truck drivers, at least in US, been like one of the most in-demand job, and you didn't have enough people to actually, and they make a lot of money. So maybe some of this is too early. Maybe, it will take some time for technology to change some of those jobs. But for sure, I think I'm extremely sensitive to these distributional effects, because although overall the economy might be better, there are segments of population that will be suffering, and I think we need to make sure that we make it a lot easier for them to transit to other jobs.
So before going to my last questions that will be on skills, I want to ask you in particular about generative AI. Like we have heard a lot of ChatGPT and the disruption that can cause, and sometimes visceral effect that it has in the first time that you see the answer from these kind of tools. What will be the disruptions in the future of work that these more advanced AI tools will have?
So far, I have not seen any indication that generative AI necessarily replaces some people or some type of jobs. The early indication we have for research is that actually is a complementary in most of the cases, augmenting technology, and it actually helps more the people that are in sort of the lower distribution. So like people that are not good at doing their job, they actually go at a higher productivity level and not necessarily. And so like there's 2 or 3 pieces of research, the really recent ones, that actually show kind of the similar effect. And again, I think it's also good to think about, when you think about these technologies, not just within sort of developed countries, but also see like in terms of like developing countries and in a global aspect. I think the benefits can be tremendous. Like think about sort of like, the benefit if and when they have better accuracy, but right now, sometimes because they hallucinate, you cannot trust them for important things. But think about like once we reach a very good level of accuracy, having a very good doctor in places where you don't have a doctor, like in Africa and other places. So I think there's going to be productivity effects, or thinking about it as somebody that is, as a, connected to remote work that has like a marketing agency, but maybe their English is not as great. Like generative AI can help. So I think for now, I see more augmentative effects than actually a substitute. But who knows if that AI becomes 2x, 3x, 5x more efficient, we might see, a lot of negative effects. I think most economists have kind of agreed that in a way, generative AI is helping us get rid of the boring part of our work. It's not taking all of our job, but if our job is a composition of different skill things or things that we need to do, for now it's just taking away sometimes most of the boring stuff that we need to do. And same thing potentially like for doctors, right? There's been a large discussion: is AI or generative AI going to replace doctors? And the answer is like no. People need a doctor. They need somebody to talk to. They need somebody. It might diagnose something better, but it still needs for you to put the right input, and you still need to be able to consult and make sure. We've had AI in airplanes forever, and we've been having pilots with AI for a long time. I don't see any time an airplane driving without a pilot, and same way I don't see generative AI driving by itself anytime without a co-pilot.
Yes. No, I agree with you, and I don't have research, but anecdotal, people telling things. No, so one of them is efficiency, which is I used to have 2 people to do this, and now 1 person can do it because many of the letters or things that we do can be generated by a tool like ChatGPT or whatever. The other one, I think, is precision, which is like the example of a doctor. There are many research that said that sometimes the corpus of knowledge in medicine is updating so fast that it's difficult to keep the pace of change. And so you're a doctor and you have a certain case. You can have a question with the AI that will give you several possible protocols or routes of action, and you can decide which one is the better. Not let the AI to decide, but then it's a more informed decision of the doctor and also of the patient. No, and I think that those kind of things could be both going into the future. But that there's another one a little bit more skeptic. But I have heard that, for instance, we will need less. Skilled people less people skilled in programming, no? Because we can have someone that is not very skilled on programming, that is just given the right prompts to program, no? For instance, those kind of things is the ones that I don't believe there's something that is sustaining there.
I mean, look, I think you come from a computer science background, so I think you know that even better than me. I mean, programming is kind of like the doctor. I mean, you kind of, yes, you can have somebody to help you start from 0 to 20 or to 50, but like you need the individual to know very well what that thing is doing. Otherwise, it could go very wrong or very right. And so, like at least for now, we need the human factor. I think the best way to think about generative AI is like having a personal assistant or a personal intern that is helping us do some things that we might find boring. It's like go and find in literature this, or go and help me that. I think that's where we are today. Again, who knows if this becomes 10x more efficient, but where we are today is more of a personal assistant and a personal intern than actually replacing a lot of our job. And I think it's the same in computing. I think, yes, it can take you there, but you need the individual to be able to, first of all, to ask the question. Like, the generative AI doesn't ask a question. Like when you write a program, there's a reason why you write it. You're solving a problem, right? And being able to understand that problem and being able to guide it. And, I don't think AI can do it today.
Yes, I will agree with you. Let's see what the future holds. And now, as we are in a EduTrends podcast that is about education and innovation, etc., I would like to go on skills. Now, what skills? And I will have a twofold last question or discussion between us, which is, what will be the skills that we need for to develop, let's say, for instance, in higher education or people that are already on the workforce? What skills do we need for them to be able to thrive in an environment where there's much more remote work, hybrid work? And the other one will be, what are the skills to face automation, AI, generative AI, etc.?
So I've been thinking about this for a long time, and I think like there was a similar question that somebody did to David Deming. He's a professor at Harvard, and he's actually worked a lot on sort of like the importance of soft skills. And this was also 4 or 5 years ago a conference about a seminar about future of work. And I think the answer is we don't know. And I think that's kind of the beauty of it, is that things are changing, right? And so we need two things. We need to almost kind of like, and maybe I'm biased a little bit here, but like we need to be able to monitor in kind of real time what is really happening with labor demand and be adaptable, but maybe not go all the way, because like you don't want to over-index or over-invest on things that like for example, right now I still have doubts how much we should invest in all of this prompt engineering, or like even doing things with ChatGPT 4 if we expect that ChatGPT 5 is going to come in 5 months. So you might not want to over-index on things that look very fancy and trendy, but you want to be flexible enough. You want to observe what is going on, and I will answer, right? But like, and to be able to like change. And so this is a big ship that is going in this direction, but I might have to go a bit left or a bit right. Being flexible and learning so that you are able, learning in a way that you can learn again, right? And when students tell me like, what would you say to your younger self? I say like, look, you're going to change many jobs. Don't over specialize. Learn enough to be technical, but also that you can change, sort of what is your specialization. I think overall, if I want to be more specific, I think there are 3 buckets of type of skills. They also change within, but those are generic that we need to teach to our students. The one is the technical skills. And those are kind of easier because there are kind of very specific things that we can observe and we can see what is in demand. And it's like, programming skill or generative AI or very specific technical skill in manufacturing or in more hard fields. So technical skills are very standard. It's not always super easy because sometimes but we need to change the curriculum based on what the demand is on those. But those are the one component. The second component is what we call the softer skill. I think everyone has understand that those are things that make us flexible, make us work in a team, makes us work and change our direction. And they can be different type of from teamwork to critical thinking and even accepting feedback. There's a lot of those that we need, and we don't necessarily always teach those to our students.
Every university says it does, but we don't see anything.
It's difficult
in particular. No,
I think, for example, accepting feedback or even giving feedback is one of the most difficult skills that I sometimes I don't know if I do it right, and I think that's like one of the most crucial things that. Being able to get feedback and being able to give feedback, for example, I think it's extremely important and it's very potentially difficult to teach. But I think the overall soft skills. But there's also a third segment of skills which I think they are overemphasized in some fields, but they are significantly underemphasized in others, which is what we may call sort of like business enablement. What they mean is that for students or for somebody that starts, is like to understand that what they're doing is not just a task. It's part of a bigger problem that I as a company, I as an institution, I as an organization, I'm trying to solve. And being able to connect the dots between what they're doing to what the real problem is. A lot of people, when they start work, it's like, my job is, you told me to do A, I do A. No, your job is not A. We are trying to achieve B. And you being able to understand how you are, by doing A, how you are part of B, I think that's like the bigger, the bigger problem that a lot of the students or people that are starting work have. And I think that's a very important one.
I always say that an analogy that is like you're not a mason putting a brick, you're building a cathedral. No, it's something bigger.
And understanding what's the cathedral, why are we building the cathedral, why it has to be stable, right? All of those things. I think that's the important part. And one concrete example of that was this whole hype with data scientists. Like, in the beginning, before like 5 or 7 years, like there was this, every company was hiring data scientists. But data scientists, at some point, they realized they only cared more or less about just playing with models and making the models efficient. They did not think too much about how am I solving a problem? How am I providing a return on investment for my employer? And it was like a big shock. Like, hey, maybe I don't really need a data scientist. Maybe I need some data engineer. But I think that's one very specific example where you had these very hyper qualified individuals who technically they were great, but they were not looking at the big picture. They were like kind of playing with models, in their computer. but not necessarily seeing how those models actually help me as a company become better, or help the clients of the company solve some of those problems. And I think that third category is a very important one that we don't emphasize as much.
Okay. Thank you very much, Bledi, for your time and for sharing your knowledge with us and our audience. I'm sure they will enjoy it as I did. I hope we can have you back in Monterrey very soon.
Thank you so much, and hope to be here soon too.
For more information, visit observatory.tech.mx/edutrendspodcast and ife.tech.mx. A special thanks to Tecnológico de Monterrey, the Institute for the Future of Education, and the Tec Sounds team. Tec Sounds producer Miguel Mejia. EduTrends producers Esteban Venegas and Cristian Igosa. Stay tuned and play Tec Sounds in your favorite podcast app for other great shows and content.